All right, James Genocide back here in the Lads Lounge studio again. We are talking with Frank Reed, the owner, creator, mind behind Godzilla's Nightclub here that was in Sun Valley, California in the 80s. Some of the greatest punk rock bands and punk rock shows ever were basically brought into that club. And I want to introduce Frank Reed. Good morning, sir. Well, actually, good afternoon in France. He's calling from France. We're here in Los Angeles. It's only 7 in the morning. So good morning, sir. Or good afternoon, sir.
Oh yeah. All is well. It's nice and sunny, and I'm always surprised that someone like you can be up so bloody early.
Well, you're,
Congratulations.
I wanted to make sure that, because I don't think people know your story. In fact, I know that you came onto my Facebook thing kind of as a rando in a sense at some point, and my friends were like, "Who's this guy? What club? What club did you run?" So obviously we had to sort of introduce you to those folks, but now we're going to introduce you to all of the people. So we have
Great.
we have listeners all around the world, and we also have listeners throughout LA and America and all over. So it's actually turning into something fun. So.
Right. Yeah.
So you're in France today, and you said the weather's well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's.
We live amongst the vineyards.
Oh, that sounds nice. Let's start simple. Let's start simple with what was your childhood like? Where did you grow up?
Oddly enough, my story is very complicated, really. I was a German kid growing along the Rhine River near Koblenz, in a little town called St. Goth, which is a big tourist haven in the middle of the Rhine Valley, where Lord Byron used to go in his day. Lots of Australian tourists, American tourists. Anyway, and nearby was an American Air Force base.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were divorced. Then my mother remarried an American GI Joe, and then we ended up in the U.S. And I was always told how rich and well off everything is in the U.S. And the first place we landed was Amarillo, Texas, and that was a culture shock. These people were like clueless. They say, "You talk funny, boy. Where you from?" and all this kind of stuff.
And all the cowboy hats. I bet that was something.
Yeah, Amarillo. Yeah, not just cowboy hats, but this total ignorance about the rest of the world. The questions they would say, "In Germany, they got refrigerators over there."
You invented the wheel and stuff. To still the wheel and. Yeah, it is interesting. People that live in America, I was just fortunate I joined the Navy and went to all through Europe and stuff. But, I come back after 3 years, my friends hadn't even left the valley, man.
Yeah, and at least they live in the valley, because there's a huge portion of the U.S. which I had the misfortune of being in for some time, and it's like a whole other planet. These people know nothing about the outside world, and they're not interested.
Yeah,
that's where we got Trump in it.
Yeah, it is kind of weird like that. We're Americans, we don't have to speak many languages. You can just pass between borders, and you don't get shaken down by the government. Yourself, you can leave from France and you're in Germany. I mean, there's so many different countries that you can bounce in and out of.
But we have a really a brilliant infrastructure.
So
I can be in Barcelona, Spain, in 2 hours on a train that goes like 300 miles an hour.
Yeah. We keep trying to put out bullet trains here in California, and it's probably the gas and car companies that keep stopping it, as well as some other things like Indian gaming and Las Vegas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, all right, so you get to Texas, and then how old are you when you arrive in Texas?
I was 13.
Oh, wow. So you're a young guy. And do you stay in America from the age of 13 on?
Until I left, I left a couple of times and came back. Went to Berlin, and I only had T-shirts, and this was winter, and I forgot how fucking cold it is. So anyway, my wife and I left in 1996. she's from Fullerton, and anyway,
Huh.
so that worked out great, and we're still here together.
Good. So,
So anyway, after the Air Force moved us sort of all around Michigan, Louisiana, and then when I was 18, I went to LA by myself, and that was a rough start. But it eventually evolved,
mm-hmm.
where I was able to start my own tiling business, and with that tiling business, I had enough income to forge into music promotion and clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so when I came out of the Army,
mm-hmm.
oh wait, I have to tell you, I had a job in Burbank as a leasing agent, and when I lost that job, I lost the apartment, and I had no money, so I joined the Army.
Oh,
Desperation,
wow. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
$5,000 enlistment bonus. Anyway, so when I came out of the Army, I went back to LA, and I quickly discovered that this sort of raw, brilliant new music. And I went to the Whiskey. I think it was X was the first band I saw, which later I just didn't like them. They sound too rockabilly. But then it was Social Distortion when they were really, really young.
Mm-hmm.
And then I picked up some flyers, and it just ballooned. Like I went to all these shows. I was like blown away. And I had the hair, the short, spiky hair,
mm-hmm.
which I got lots of hassles for in the Valley, I tell you, at that time.
Yeah, because people didn't understand it at all.
Well, generally, American society in general terms is more conservative about your outer appearance than over here. You can do well. Maybe it's not that way now, but it was that way. Definitely that way.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I remember when I first got into punk rock and you dressed punk rock, people would literally like, "What the fuck are you?" Or you were or you were a fag. You were some sort of queer weirdo.
Yeah, it's always the sexual thing,
Yeah.
And to be frank, the punk scene in LA, a lot of it was just, they cut their hair short and they put on a band T-shirt and a little bracelet and then quote insta punk,
Yeah.
But if you went to the UK, bands like GBH, they look or exploited. They are, to me, that was the look. That was the
mm-hmm.
the real thing, the real McCoy. That's why I eventually moved to London.
Yeah, it's definitely a heavier look. In LA, it was definitely stripped down. The jeans, T-shirt, flannel shirt, pair of boots. It was kind of simple starting out.
Yeah.
It became elaborate in many different ways, but that was also kind of like what your influence was. If you were like really an LA hardcore guy, that's kind of the way you dressed. If you were an English
mm-hmm.
guy, because a lot of the guys that loved English music, like GBH and Discharge and all those different bands, they dressed more with the studs and the acne, the leather jackets, the cones and stuff like that. And it would be, it was elaborate. You look back now and some of the pictures and you go, wow, man, they spent a lot of time on their stuff,
Yeah, but that's cool,
Yeah.
In the 90s, all the styles went like, bands looked like the guy who changes your tire.
Yeah, there was a wardrobe consultant.
No style, but
they all had a wardrobe consultant, and the wardrobe consultant was being paid by all the big labels. They're funneling all their cute T-shirts and tops and it's making money. It's just making money.
Yeah. So anyway,
so you go to the clubs and you start hearing this new sound and stuff's jumping. What's the first promotion you ever did?
Okay, that was the Adolescents and the Chiefs. I was managing the Chiefs.
Oh.
And they had a song called "At the Beach." It was a really, really good song. But they didn't get far. But whatever they did at the time was good. And I was their manager.
Mm-hmm.
I got them on Rodney and the Rock, and then I promoted a show with them, and TSOL, before they were known.
Mm-hmm.
They were at the bottom of the ticket, and I still have a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that at Devonshire Downs at the CSUN, I think it was so called. Yeah.
Yeah, the CSUN campus. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I went to many shows. I went to many shows there.
And then I met these really young guys that wanted to be on the show as well, and I did put them on. And they were called Bad Religion, and they were like 17 or something. They go, we can't get any gigs, blah, blah, blah. I said, why don't you come with me to the CSUN interview?
Mm-hmm.
And they did, and it all, and the show made money, and so I did it one more time. And the reason I did that, I was supposed to get The Exploited, but the Stern brothers called the agency in New York and said, well, we can do 2 shows, you know. And so I already had the contract, and then they snapped it out from under me. And in the meantime, I had rented the hall at CSUN and at Devonshire Downs. What am I going to do? So I just packed it with all the LA bands and Fear and.
I was at that show. I was at that show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you had this was after the big hassle with the Stern brothers, and they had their stooges in there, and they would graffiti the bathroom, so I wouldn't get my deposit back, and they broke part of the stage and caused nothing but trouble, you know. But whatever.
Wow. I did not.
So eventually,
I didn't know that.
I started looking for a venue, a place, and I stumbled across. There was this Mexican Americans, and they had what they call a mercado, a market, and it was inside the building that they were in that building that the Godzillas was.
Which was like an old bowling alley, right? Or something.
Yeah.
As well.
Exactly, but they had cleared it out, and their market idea didn't work at all.
Yeah. And
they were behind on the rent, so I offered, you know, to take over, and that's what we did. But I was on a sublease, and eventually they didn't pay the electric bills. They didn't pay the rent. I mean, to the
so
to
you
the
could, so you're subleasing, and they're not doing their part of it.
Yeah, I'm leasing from them, and they're leasing from the real owner.
Yeah.
And in the end, that's why the place closed down, because I wasn't going to pay $15,000 they wanted.
Yeah, because you'd already been paying that money, and they were just pocketing it. In other words.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you know, it's
generally the whole Godzilla's thing was very stressful. I mean, it was just overwhelming. You know, first night you had 1,000 people or so, and a lot of kids were milling around in the back and upsetting the neighbors. And the police came, the fire department came, everybody was on my back. You know, and then a city councilman held a meeting, and he said, "How fast can we close this place?"
Yeah.
So I was constantly under strain.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun and games.
How long did from beginning to end? How long did Godzilla's last in its entirety?
You know, it's been so long. I can't remember. I've done 2-3 clubs since then, in London and one in Seattle.
But it was a good year, wasn't it? At least a year long.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was at least a year. I know that the Damned played in 1981. I think it was late in the year.
Another great show that I attended. Another one. And you mentioned earlier, you mentioned Bad Religion earlier, and I remember them coming in and I did a story called Bad Religion Takes Over Godzilla's. Because we had been, I actually was fortunate. I had friends of a friend, and I went to the studio with Bad Religion when they recorded the album How Could Hell Be Any Worse. And I ended up as a voice track on the song The Voice of God is Government. So In God We Trust, Sinners Repent. It's like me and my friend Tony singing in the background. And it was like 14, you know, and the only reason we went there was because they needed somebody to carry their junk, you know. But man, I'll tell you, I remember getting a cassette tape of that studio recording before the album ever came out. So all my friends and I, we had like a tape to tape, you know, and we all dubbed the tape, so everybody had a copy of it. And by the time we went to that show at Godzilla's, we knew all the lyrics, we knew all the songs, you know, and it just made it even better. Yeah, it just made it even better, you know. But so of the shows that were coming in and coming out of there, what was the funnest show you ever had where you just said, wow, you know, you wanted maybe that band or that act to come back even more? Were there any?
Well, that would be 2 bands. Antipasti being one of them.
Dude, they were great. And, I love them so much. They're one of my favorite bands.
the drummer, I think it was, yeah, he stayed at my house because he's the only one that didn't smoke.
Uh,
Same thing with DOA. The non-smoker stayed at my house, and I had a house down on Roscoe Boulevard in Sun Valley,
oh, funny.
just by the freeway there, across from this temple. And yeah, so there we were. And then the Damned, of course, the Damned.
Right.
And Brenda Perlin, she wrote a book called Crime and Punishment.
Uh-huh.
That's actually, she didn't write it, she just took snippets from other people. Uh-huh. And my story about the night the Damned played is chapter 1.
Oh, nice one.
And it was, I'll tell you, what happened was they were already irritated. The band was irritated because the people that were supposed to pick them up from the hotel were late, yeah?
Yeah,
so by the
nice.
time they got to the club, they were irritated.
Yeah.
So Captain Sensible and them, they're on stage. He plugs in his amp and it blows up. And then he screams to the audience and said, "You stupid fucking Yanks, you know how to nuke the Russians, but you're too fucking stupid to build a fucking amplifier." And then all these skinhead types rushed toward the front. And me and the crew had to push people back, and this young girl almost got crushed. It was crazy. Yeah. And then they broke into neat, da 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 da, you know, and all was forgiven, and the place went fucking nuts.
I know, it's so crazy because you're right. Like drama and fights and things like that could go on, and then man, as soon as a song started up, people would start slamming, and all that shit was in the past. Kind of crazy, but
well, since my main hall was closed after Antipasti for noise complaints, we had to do it in a little disco room, so there wasn't really much room for slamming.
Yeah, it got a little bit tighter. I remember, but it was kind of nice though because it became even a little bit more intense. When they were in the big room, we could spread out more, and I think once you got packed into that room, man, it was like you got to fight your way out of there.
And another local LA band I really liked and became friends with John. It was a Circle One.
Right? Yeah.
And they were the fastest. I mean, never heard anything that fast. I mean, they played at my house as well.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know that Fear, Lee Ving, I was friends with him back then too, and they played on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And so after the show, he brought John Belushi into Godzilla's.
Oh, wow! Like weeks later, or like a week or something.
Yeah, and then the next week it was Jello Biafra came, we sat in my office doing Lines of Speed or Coke, I forgot, probably Speed, and having a nice conversation. And the guy he was not just brilliant, but he was super nice. I mean,
he's very
accommodating.
Yeah, he sounds
supporting.
like, yeah.
And he was there are a lot of people that are semi-literate, but this guy, he knows.
Yeah, he's well-read. He's been.
Satire.
Yeah, he's a person who's been around and he's actually educated.
Yeah. No, I really appreciated that sitting down with the guy and have a nice conversation. Yeah, and so that's also the bands from the South, which the Stern Brothers, I had hired them to hire bands, okay? Because I was too busy keeping the place open and doing managerial things that need to be done during the night, during the shows. And so slowly they thought it was their club, and they would paint. This is a BYO club. This nonsense,
Yeah.
And then they had someone at the LA Weekly write an article saying the selling of punk. They talked about Godzilla and never mentioned my name, and that's why there's lots of confusion, I'm sure. I did not have access to this sort of, media thing, But they're Beverly Hills boys, and they lived at the other side of the hill. And when they first saw Godzilla's, when I showed them, they said to each other, Sean said to his brother, "Oh, God, look at all these poor white people that live here. I mean, these guys were so used to, upper class, wealthy areas. They haven't even seen the downtrodden." Also, they thought they look down on other people. You know,
Yeah.
they're assholes.
There was it's not just them. There were other people that were like that. Like I mentioned, punk
Yeah, but they have a
exploded
lot
to
of
so.
influence.
It's funny. Like, I mean, I was talking to a good friend of mine that I grew up with. We knew this girl, and she lived in Encino, and she was worth millions of dollars. Her house was next door to Michael Jackson. I mean, literally, I remember us playing like catch on the front lawn of her house,
Yeah,
which was a compound, and you could hear Michael Jackson, music coming from the Michael Jackson house, and
yeah, yeah.
she would literally go to places like Godzilla's and sit on the curb and panhandle and ask for a buck. And then
Mm.
one day, a friend of mine says he was driving down the road and she's driving around in this, you know, super expensive sports car, and he flags her down. They pull over, and she says, "Oh, I just realized one day that I was rich and I gave up panhandling." It's like, psh, it's nice that you
Yeah,
had that option.
yeah,
Some of
yeah,
us didn't.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, the most fun night I ever had at Godzilla's was the after the gig party. I had this Israeli friend, and he had a house in the Hollywood Hills, and so he threw a party, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and so we're all in there, and one of my stage managers was Ken Weatherwax,
Mm-hmm.
who played Pugsley in the Addams Family TV show, the black and white TV show.
Oh,
So
okay.
Pugsley, yeah,
Yeah,
but he didn't like to be called Pugsley though.
of
Anyway,
course
so
not. Yeah.
Dave Vanian is sitting in a chair, and I went to him. I said, "See that guy over there?" I said, "That's Pugsley from the Addams Family. Would you like to meet him?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah, right, right." Yeah, and that was one, and they chatted. Now there was this long table, yeah, like a coffee table,
Mm-hmm.
and Captain Sensible was at the other end, and he was eating cookies out of this cookie bowl, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly he kicked the bowl, and it slid across the table. And then the Israeli guy, he said, "You want more cookies?" I don't know. It's one of those. The memory is so
Sure.
strong in my head. I can still see it now. But yeah, that was a fun night. That was truly a fun night.
Wow. So you got to
But
really get to know a lot of these artists that were coming in and out.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I should not have ever considered getting people to hire bands, because they would call me up, the phone ring off the hook.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing the shows at CSUN,
Uh-huh.
I mean, this manager from the then manager from all sorts of bands. I forgot his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Social Distortion and all like that,
Uh-huh.
and the Huntington Beach bands. I forgot. One of them did a song called Addiction, Addiction.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
Remember that one?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Even
It's been so
myself,
long
I've gotten
ago.
older too. I don't remember everything anymore. But
Well,
as
yeah,
far
well,
as those bands
I
down there, it
moved.
was like Channel 3 and yeah, it was
Yeah,
so many of
and
them.
the Angry Samoans played a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, in the meantime, I have lived in 4 different countries and moved a lot, so my mind is like a sieve.
Right.
But
So, uh, were there times when you'd close that club, Godzilla's down at night, and were there just bodies that they were just laying there?
no, there are people living in the cracks. I mean,
Right? Like
there's this guy
didn't
named
yeah.
Opie. I don't know if you heard of this guy, Opie. He was really short but very muscular.
Uh-huh.
He and his girlfriend lived in one of the cubby holes there, and I say, yeah, whatever. And then a few more guys moved in with him. So yeah, but there were no dead bodies. No, no, no.
I just like, I know they were out. Like I remember going to the bathroom one night and a friend of mine, he had passed out and people were drawing on his face and sticking condoms in his ear holes. Shit. It's like, and it was just like, wow, this is
Yeah.
really a place you do not want to pass out in, man. It's a bad
Yeah,
place.
well, another thing that happened was, at least we had bathrooms until I fired Sean Stern and his brother Mark. I fired them, and because they were angry, their friends would come in and throw cherry bombs into the toilet bowl and blow them up. So there's not even, if you had to take a dump, there's no place to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a constant battle. I'm telling you,
they were kind of
Whenever you have something, then everybody wants to be your friend, and then the next thing they want to take over and say it's theirs, and just my second club I had years later. After Godzilla's, I went to Germany to live in this medieval town, and I had a pub for a year. And after 15 months, I came back to LA. Shortly thereafter, I got, when I was in Germany, I got into the Sisters of Mercy.
Oh, right on.
You're familiar with them, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Cocteau Twins and a ton of goth bands. So then I totally got into goth, mixed goth with punk a bit, and then I found a place on Washington Boulevard, the Ebony Showcase Theater, and then I started that club, the Crypt.
Oh, wow.
And at first,
wow.
Back then, the goth scene in LA was very, very small. You know,
it wasn't even called. When I remember seeing goth bands, they weren't called goth bands. We called them death rock.
Yeah. Well, if you remember Christian Death, Roz Williams.
Yeah, we always called them death rock.
They played it at Godzilla's, and the audience did not get it. They thought, I heard people say they're satanic, they're possessed, because they were all dressed goth, But so anyway, I was struggling with that club to get. It's not like punk rock. Punk rock, if you have a location, you have the people instantly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I had to collect. I had to work hard to get the
people.
Because
the goth scene is even that goth scene is a partition of all the other things that were kind of going on, and I'm assuming it's a smaller entity too. It's not.
Yeah, but I like the people. They were not as nasty at the door.
It's true.
It's not so chaotic. They just wanted to look good and dance and it was an easier scene to deal with for me. And so Roz Williams, he had a side project from Christian Death called Premature Ejaculation, which was a funny name. And they wanted to. He called me. He wanted to play, and I said okay. So I put an ad in the LA Weekly, and when I went that night to set up the sound speakers and stuff with the sound man, there was already a huge queue lined up outside, and so it was packed. I mean, packed. And so the next thing I know, we have a mention in the LA club scene. So we were like the smaller version of the Scream Club. And after that, it was great. I mean, every Friday night, I'd go home. I had like $1,000 in my pocket, and life was pretty good for the moment. That was. Yeah. So that's how I evolved into.
And how long did that club last? And
maybe a year or so, and then once again it got popular, and people would park in front of other people's houses, and they would drink, and they would disturb the neighbors, and then they started complaining to the fire department, which is exactly what happened at Godzilla's.
Yeah.
And the fire department came and they said, no, this building is unsafe, closed, finished. And back in those days, to try to find a venue with a dance license and all the required licenses was extremely difficult, Yep.
They didn't really issue licenses in those days, and from what I understand is if you wanted one, you had to kind of lease it. Like even liquor license here in Los Angeles, like you couldn't get one. I know this because I had family that was trying to buy a bar and stuff, and they were saying that they couldn't get their own license in their own name. They didn't really issue them because they zone things here. There's a certain amount of bars in a certain amount of area or something they're allowed to have. So he was getting, it's like you start a bar and you think you're going to be successful, but you're getting bled out the back end because of the licensing.
Yeah, well, I looked for places that already had the license in place, and I found one. It was just an old Jamaican guy. They were cool people, and yeah, so that worked out really well, and until it didn't. But yeah, that was a mellow club experience, for myself. And then
It was kind
later
of
on,
like a nice changeover because like punk rock was cool and the music's cool, but it really brought in a lot of delinquents, underage
it brought in a
drinking.
lot of assholes.
Yeah,
A lot of them they read somewhere
yeah,
that you're supposed to spit on people, and they
yeah,
actually did this.
yeah. They would see
And I
that crap
remember,
on the news. The news would always hype it up, the violence and this and that. I remember like a whole week long like expose on punk rock, and every day it was another horrible video from some club somewhere of a fight,
mm-hmm,
and the menace. And my parents watched this, I'm like 14 years old, and they're going, "What is this? This is not good."
mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I remember watching a show on a program on I forgot channel 13 or 11, one of the independents, and they went to I think the Starwood and filmed the show, and it showed some guy saw the camera, so he acted like he had to throw up, and then the announcer said, "Yes, punk rock beats or be beaten," and I think a lot of people took the cue from that, and they
yeah.
were violent, and they thought it was an excuse to be obnoxious,
They
really.
thought it was They thought, "Hey, look, I like to fight. I can just go there. I can fight, and I don't get arrested."
Mm-hmm.
you know.
One thing I loved about Europe is, how in the U.S. it's 18 and over, or it's all ages club, blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing over anywhere whether Germany or UK, whatever. You just go to their club and they don't care about if there's beer or not. Alcohol is not the big. Alcohol is served. I think that's part of the
See,
American psyche.
it's yes,
puritanical.
it absolutely. What happens is with because of the they turn it kind of turn it into a mystery you can only you have to be a certain age, and it's this whole rule, but yet you're drinking from the age of 14 before you ever hit 21 anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
It I think it perpetuates heavier drinking, irresponsible drinking, instead of if you went to a nightclub and just were served a drink, and then when you probably were having too many, that bartender would say, time to cool it out. They're just guzzling a bottle of vodka and downing it with some old English 800, and so you're
Well,
bit.
the idea was not to savor, but just to get drunk.
Yes.
And
Yeah. Where
that's what
I
I
had
think
gone to Europe, and I would see kids, like you mentioned, you'd go to a bar and you find out the girl's 17. What the hell, But she's not bombed, like the girls at 17 here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people over here in this side of the ocean, they grow up differently, and they just alcohol is no big deal, really. I mean, yeah, you have drunks, but you don't have it. It's not like the big, I'm underage, I'm gonna drink tonight. That doesn't exist.
Because it's just a
you
common
decide
thing. It's not like, we make it a big deal here. Like, oh, one day you're going to be able to get to drink. It's like,
Yeah,
it builds a hype. Like, oh, I can't wait.
yeah.
You know?
When I went back to visit Germany, they treat beer like a soda pop, like a
Sure.
soft drink.
Yeah.
You see 14-year-olds having a beer with their parents.
There
Now in
was
France, now
there
in
was a
France, it's the same thing with wine.
mhm. There was a day in America that it was like that. For instance, I knew a guy that worked at the Budweiser plant, and he was a much older gentleman than I was, and he worked there as an emergency rescue guy, and he would pull people's arms out of the conveyor belts all day long because they were allowed beer at their breaks and their lunch for free,
Mm-hmm.
and beer was considered bread. It wasn't even liquor at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying, like, throughout the day, everything would be cool, but then by the afternoon, and depending on what day it was, especially a Friday, someone would get too fucked up and get caught in a machine. And eventually that shit had to stop, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just, it's interesting. I notice much of the younger people now, they're drinking these low either less liquor type beverages. They're getting away from that.
You mean low alcohol? Low
Yeah,
alcohol, yeah.
yeah, they're using these lower alcohol beverages. And then the other thing is, and I don't know how it goes with France, but here in America, in some, not all states, but a lot of states, marijuana and cannabis is taken over. So instead of getting
Yeah, well, that's
bombed,
legal. That's good.
yeah, instead of getting bombed, they have a little joint on a Thursday night and they go to bed at a reasonable time and they wake up and they feel okay instead of like, oh my gosh, I had 29 beers last night.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that legalizing pot is the brilliant idea. I know that in Colorado it took in so much tax money that it paid for the schools and the highways and whatever. In Germany, a couple of years ago, they legalized it because it was an uphill battle. But people smoke hash more than marijuana.
Yeah, I remember
that's
hash.
legal now, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember going. We put like I was in the Navy. We pulled into Spain, which actually Gibraltar, and as soon as you walk through that town, it was like these kids walking around with like golf ball sized pieces of hash, yelling "chocolata, chocolata." I'm like, oh, I got to get myself some of that. So I remember smoking a hell
I don't
of
know
hash.
what year was that when you were
In 1986.
Yeah, well, lots changed.
Oh yeah.
Spain has really come up. I mean, we live about 2 hours from the Spanish border, and we go there to Salvador Dali's hometown, where his museum is. This beautiful, beautiful place, gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
And generally, I'm in Barcelona and having sushi, and it's really a nice country.
Yeah, I loved Malaga.
All
like,
of the EU.
Yeah, I loved Malaga.
All the European Union generally, it's all really high standard, good quality of life.
Interesting.
And I see friends in LA that are struggling now because everything got so damn expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. They talk about capitalism, and everybody thinks that they're one day going to become a billionaire, and it's just not the case.
No, it's brainwashed.
Like this.
People are brainwashed.
Yeah, they keep doing these tax cuts for the rich, and it's trickle-down economics. And the reality is that you're going to rely on the benevolence of the rich people to give you money. They're going to come and help me out. Who are they? Mother Teresa? The businessmen are not Mother Teresa. They're not coming to help you.
Reagan started all that.
Yeah.
That's why the band Wasted Youth. Remember them?
We
This
love them.
scrawny little guy.
Yeah.
They had a photo of Reagan getting beaten.
Yeah, the cover of that album.
The 45.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was a reason for that. If it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be Fox News, and because there's Fox News, millions of uninformed Americans turn MAGA, which I'm paying $10 worth, like $10 a gallon.
I know.
Or €3 for a liter. Because of what he's doing, what Trump is doing in the Middle East, and it's because of stupid people, man.
That's what happens when you have an uneducated dunderhead that you put in charge. You don't need a layman. You don't need like some guy. You need a guy that knows government and knows how to do the job. And it just doesn't seem like he's doing anything but the job on us, and then making a lot of money for himself.
Yeah, he's using the U.S. as a cash register, and the people over here are saying, how can Americans be so dumb and elect this guy twice when you saw the mess he made the first time?
It's insane.
Then I try to explain it's the South, it's the Midwest mostly. Yep. These people are beyond help.
Yeah, plus they have this thing called the Electoral College here, and that dates all.
I'm well aware of
that.
It
dates all the way back to the slave days, and they need to drop that shit and move on with the popular vote. And I'll tell you, Republicans haven't won the popular vote in the last 40 years anyways, because nobody likes their shit. They sell shit, and that's all they do. And every time they come into office, they start a war and they bankrupt the country. They turn us into a recession. They fucking, just screw us over every time. And, I don't know how many times the American people are going to have to put up with that shit before they finally just go, okay, it's enough.
Well, it depends on what kind of American people. You got 30% of the country that is beyond reach. They're so fucking...
Well, I mean, I was looking up a thing. They were talking about job growth since the Clinton era. And people, go look it up, dum-dums. Don't argue with me. Just go look it up, and then you can argue with yourselves. But since Clinton has been in office, Democrats have created 50 million jobs to 1 million jobs that the Republicans have created. I mean,
yeah.
you're talking 30 fucking years. And Republicans have can only account for 1 million jobs they've ever created. Well, the Democrats have gotten 5.
Yeah, what gets me is that the American white working class in the Midwest, the South especially, are always rooting for people like Trump, rich people, you know. And Europe is the opposite. They go off with their heads.
Yeah.
That's what we have. That's why you have a state that universal health care here, which is just brilliant. And over there, you know, a doctor visits and puts you back.
What you have is you have medical cartels like Kaiser and United Healthcare and all these people, and they're the ones that have been paying all of these people in Congress and the Senate to push this bullshit message about how, like, well, if they socialize medicine, you know, you're going to have to fucking wait like at the post office, and you go to other countries and it's not that way. Of course there's a wait.
Exactly.
There's always a fucking wait. There's a fucking wait everywhere. There's a wait at the McDonald's, so motherfucker, bring a book. You know, but imagine, you know.
There are lots of people in the U.S. that have never left the country.
Yeah.
They've never had a passport. A lot of them have never even left their state. Some of them have left their county. And they are so brainwashed with this American exceptionalism, which no longer exists at all.
It's true.
People here have a longer lifespan. You know, I always say, when I argue with a MAGA, then how come people over here live 10 years longer? Between 8 and 10 years out. That says it all, doesn't it?
How about quality of life? You know, like here, everything's rush, you know. I'm pushing 59 and I still got to have a job and I still have to hustle. You know, it's...
Is that why you get up so early?
Yeah. No, I got up early today because I wanted to make sure that I was up for this interview because look, there's a lot of people here in Los Angeles that just don't know your story, man. And I think that's a crime, you know.
Well, okay. The story is this. Like I said, I found a location. It was my idea. And I'm the one that got sued by Soho Pictures for using the name Godzilla's.
Wow.
I got sued. I had to go to court for that.
Wow.
I had to go to court for noise complaints. It was my location, my idea. And the first bands that played on that weekend, I booked all of them. And after that, things got fuzzy, and like I say, I let these Stern brothers in, and they stole so much money at the door. I don't know, and they looked at me like, "What are you doing here?" Well, this is my club, you asshole, you know.
Yeah.
So when I saw them at gigs after it was all over, I would confront them, and they'd say, "What did we do?" It's just disgusting little bastards.
So
but
unfortunately,
anyways,
at the end of of Godzilla's, it was really kind of like an implosion, and like, you know, we were like ready to run in a sense, yeah. Because you're like fed up with it, right? You're like, hey, look, I've been lied to, motherfucking. You know, you're doing favors for people, just hiring them and letting them live there, even.
And
they're fucking you over.
Valiums that my nerves were shot. You know, I was just constantly. I had the police, I had the neighbors, I had the fire department.
I remember reading an article in LA Times, and they were talking about how the crime rate went down in that little area where Godzilla's was. That literally they were saying, they were bitching and moaning about the club, but then they found that crime in that area went down. And it was somehow to do with the fact that because we were moving in and all this lights and all this activity, they weren't able to pull the fucking shit they were pulling in that local area there.
No. Yeah, I remember the police, they're very conservative, right?
Yeah.
So one night, somebody of the Stern Stooges called the police and said that I was serving alcohol to kids, and they had a 6-pack of beer that they stuck behind the bar. And so the cops came barging in, pushed me out of the way, went straight to the bar. But luckily, Opie, or one of the guys, had found it, and they drank all the beer, so saved my butt. And then, John, this guy from Circle One, the singer, he was huge. He was this huge guy.
John Mecias.
And he was angry. And he was angry at the cops. And he was just doing a song called Highway Patrol when these cops came in. And he looked at the cop, and the cop sort of looked down like, "Oh, I don't want to tangle with this."
Don't fuck with that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, his. Have you ever heard about his story and his demise and what happened
Yeah,
with
he
John?
went nuts. He went religious or something, and he went to the Santa Monica Pier,
Yeah, he threw a
and he threw
guard.
a
He
cop
threw a
overboard,
no,
and they shot him.
he
Yeah,
threw a security guard over the pier into the ocean, but then he
yeah.
proceeded through Venice, California, just destroying and going through the neighborhood until they eventually got to a corner, and I think he got in some big beef, and then a cop ended up killing him, and that cop
Mm,
even ended up supposedly like a mess over it, because killing somebody doesn't always agree with you in the
mm.
long run. And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think it ended up very well for him. He just like I don't know. I think he died somehow or another by his own means.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, John. I ran around with John. I was, there's a picture of me with John. I'm standing next to him at Godzilla's, and and
Okay.
and we would
You still
go.
have it?
Yeah, I do. That's actually on jamesgenocide.com. It's in the story. I think it might be in Godzilla. It might be the story "Bad Religion Takes Over Godzilla." So I can send you the link to that.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you would do.
Yep. Yep. And but there's an
Well,
image of me
people
sort
people
of.
have sent
What was I saying?
people have sent me a few. People have sent me
Mm-hmm.
on Facebook a few flyers from Godzilla's,
Mm-hmm.
and even the ticket stub for the dam. And I really appreciate that.
I
And
have.
whoever the company was that printed the tickets to get in for the damned,
Uh-huh.
they misspelled Godzilla's. They were so stupid. They wrote
Yeah.
Gazallers or Gazildos or some
Sure.
fucking idiots.
Sure. Sure. I actually do have all of my old flyers from when I was a kid, and I actually have a lot of Godzilla's flyers. So I've already scanned those. I will ship them to you.
Oh,
In
that'd be
fact, I'll
brilliant.
have to
Yeah,
get your email or something like that to ship them out to you because you
yeah.
definitely want to see those. And it's just nice. You can even print them wherever you are and then stick them up on a wall or something.
Yeah.
But
On my wall. Yeah.
so obviously we talked a little bit about like the LA punk scene and then how it evolved, like you said, into a club where you were running this goth club. What do you think about music today and the scenes that are going on, the many different scenes that are out there? Do you have any new music that you love or?
I have lots of new music that I love.
Uh-huh.
There's a band from Sweden that came. Then came Silence is the name of the band. Then
Uh-huh.
came Silence, and there's some band from Poland. There's some bands from some good ones out of Italy, and some great ones out of New York. And it's sort of I like dark. I like music that's dark and guitar driven, unless it's dark electro.
Mm-hmm.
And I use Spotify, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I just type in the name of the band I want, and they come up with it, and all the other bands that would be similar in sound. So
Yeah.
I'm constantly discovering new bands, and there are lots of good music out there. But your average pop radio on the radio is atrocious.
It
The
hurts my
shit that they
ears.
play
It
in the
hurts my ears, man.
supermarket.
To hear harmonized voices, that's like kryptonite, man. Either sing the song
Uh,
or don't sing it. Figure it out.
yeah, and then you've got you have these you go to the supermarket and you hear these girly pop, like I
Yeah.
don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all high pitched, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a
It's
fucking
made for
annoying.
14-year-old girls, and it's a passing moment.
Exactly.
I don't think
Yeah,
that
yeah, you're right.
there's.
It's for pre-teens.
Yeah, it's not something that stands forever. Although maybe those girls would go, "Oh, there was this one song," But I don't
Yeah,
like.
but
It's
the stuff
interesting.
have
It's interesting. Even my nieces who are younger, 22 and 20, like they still gravitate towards older bands and rock music and the things that
well,
even we grew up with. That are
right.
just
Well, look, you've got pop slop, which is pushed by the big corporations, and then you have that stuff stays on the shelves for a year at the most, maybe even a week or two. But then the really good stuff, it will be around for decades.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that to me, that's that's what I bother myself. I don't bother myself with the disposable nonsense, But then again, hey, people don't know that. They just don't know that. They.
Yeah, look, I was a school teacher for like 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
mostly in London.
Mm-hmm.
And what the kids were very conservative, very conformist. And this was during a time rap was it.
Mm-hmm.
And they all liked rap. And I said, why do you like rap? And he said, well, because my friends like it.
Mm.
Well, and there you go,
Yeah, it's just the crowd.
No
Yeah, like what's hot, what's not kind of thing, Where I do know that like our generation, and especially that punk rock thing, it was not that. It was, I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want to, and I really don't care what anybody thinks.
What I liked about early punk rock is it's a do-it-yourself scene.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't. Four people got together in their garage and just threw some chords together. The next thing you know, you got a song.
True.
That's what was the beauty of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And it could go any direction. It wasn't formatted. I remember going to clubs and you would see a rockabilly band and then a punk band and then there was a conglomerate of all of those different types of genres all within the punk scene in a sense. And you could do whatever you wanted to, and it could go wherever it went. But it, like anything, it becomes more formatted over time. People go, okay, here's the formula, and let's stick with the formula.
But there are some promoters, and you could tell they never really listened to any of the music that the shows are putting on. They didn't know the music. Yeah. I remember they had the Ramones at the Hollywood Palladium, and they had like a rap band opening up for them, and they got beer thrown on them and everything because it just doesn't go. And then when I saw the Clash, I saw the Clash at the Hollywood Bowl, and they had a rockabilly band open up, and they were really good.
Yeah.
But people were booing them. And one guy bought a giant Coke, and he threw it at the guitar player to electrocute the guys.
Oh shit! I remember seeing the Clash play at the Hollywood Palladium. And I remember we talk a story about John Mecias. John Mecias was out front on Sunset, and he's got all of us, all of his crew, and all of our crew. And he says, as soon as they play White Riot, we're going in them front doors. So a guy walks up with
that's what I meant.
Yeah, one of his guys.
The Hollywood Palladium.
Yeah, one of his guys walks up with a screwdriver. It's like a crowbar. It's so big, and he walks up, and sure enough, they start playing White Riot. He pops the door, and I mean, man, like 60 kids go running in that front door, and the guards are trying to stop them, and it was just melee. Just a melee.
Oh, yeah.
And then they had to eventually close the show down because it's just sort of like come and go as you please at that point because the doors are broken. And I remember everybody coming out and the cops lined up all along the street across there on the other side of Sunset by the parking lot. And they had their shields.
Yeah, you remember that movie, that Penelope, what was it? The Decline of Western Civilization,
yes.
That first punk movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I went to that. And the next thing you know, there were some kids in the street, and the LAPD overreacted. And next thing you know, there was a massive riot going down.
Was that the opening night for the movie?
The what?
So it was the opening night for the Decline?
Yeah, I suppose it was. It's too long ago. But anyway, all I know is I was getting the hell out of there because the cops were getting brutal.
Yeah, they would just hit you, man. There were no cameras. The neighbors weren't going to report them. There was no oversight committee. Very little, if anything. And they would just do whatever the fuck they wanted to, and they brutalized kids all the time.
Well, you should try the goth scene. They thought you're a bunch of freaks, and they really harassed some of the goth kids. They just don't like nonconformity. Okay, if you don't look like a jock that came out of
one of the things that really scares the police, or at least did, was Satanism. So, for instance, I knew a gang called FFF. F is the sixth letter of the alphabet. The cops thought they were like some devil-worshipping gang. And they were terrified. They were terrified because they are good Christian men, right? And they terrified that Satan was around.
Well, yeah, but rock and roll has always, had an adverse reaction from some people.
Sure.
Remember Led Zeppelin, if you play Stairway to Heaven backward, it says Satan is king, and that was going around back then. And and anything, and oh my God, especially when Goth came out, you're Satan boy. I mean, remember Billy Idol White Wedding video?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were convinced this guy was Satan.
Yeah, it was considered it was considered controversial, all that stuff, sure. That, he's talking about Satan, and it's always the conspiracy theories are like, it's this, it's that, the other. They have more time on their hands to fucking think about shit that don't fucking matter. I tell you, I wish I had that kind of time in my life. Fuck me.
That's why Trump is in there, and that's how he got elected. Yeah. Just that kind of those people in there. Scared of everything. Fox News blows in their ass and it gets even more riled up,
So, you leave L.A. in, you said 97?
96, yeah. 96, went to London.
So, what goes...
I went to London and then I did a club on Brixton Hill for a bit.
What was that called?
And Hollywood Hell.
Oh, okay.
Because you got to exploit the word Hollywood.
Yeah.
You just and it was in a pub from the 1800s, the Victorian pub with all the carved wood. It was just an amazing, place. Yeah,
what in terms of managing a club in London or in England, compared to America? Were liquor licenses a thing? Like how it was an issue here?
No, that's what I was trying to tell you. It was a pub, but they didn't care. People would just show up, and there was nobody saying, "Let me see some ID." You just paid the money and go in. And there weren't a bunch of drunk kids running around, throwing up in the corners. It's just a different culture. It's a culture. Their alcoholic maturity there, just like it's not a big deal.
I mean, you're a child. I mean, I don't know. I know that because some of my family was from Europe, and wine was at lunch every day for kids. It was
it is here too.
Yeah, it was just a drink that you drank, and it wasn't something you drink a bottle. You drank a small glass, and
That's the way it is over here. Where we live, you see any social event, and you see all you see is wine. And
sure.
You look at the U.S. social event, all you see little cups of Coke or non-alcoholic. It's a different culture, really. Yeah.
Again, I think there's this sort of mystique that's built because you can't do it. And anything that you can't do, you want to know what's behind that damn door. I see that door every day. I just wonder what's behind that door. No, you can't go in there. You can't go in there. No, you can't go in there. You're like, damn, I know there's something behind that fucking door that I want to go see. It's just one of those things, right? It's the human mind just playing tricks on you because you're like, damn, I got to know what's going on behind there. So... You said you were a teacher for almost 20 years?
Yeah. When I did Godzilla's, I had 3 years at UCLA under my belt, and then when I lost my job as a leasing agent, remember I told you, and I went in the Army, and so my education was disrupted, and so much later. My wife helped me. By the way, I met her. She came dancing at the Goth Club at the Crypt. That's how we met. So it's rock and roll right there. And
that's
music.
Cool.
So anyway, and she encouraged me, and I finished that last year. And then we went to England, to London, to be specific. And I got onto a teacher training program for a year, which the state paid for. And then I was teaching, And I did 16 years in London and 4 years in Berlin.
Wow. There's nothing better than a woman that can support you that way. Someone who's just there for you. I mean, I've had a few women that were that way in my life. And if you're lucky enough to make that connection where, they're just there and you probably never even, maybe you never even thought about it, I'll go back to school and I'll do this and there'll be another life and, right, you're coming from LA and all this crazy shit and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, she brought you back to zero. She brought you back to home, brought you back to, more stable life, probably. You know.
Yeah, and then it paid off for her as well when she ended up getting a PhD in epidemiology. So because we have peaceful life at home and we support each other and it all worked out. Now we got a nice place to live.
Yeah, that's nice.
With
So it turned out well. I mean, it could. There's so
yeah.
many stories of punk rock and the music scene and the club scene that just don't go well. Um,
No, no, not at
it can
all.
be a rough life. Crash course into drugs and alcohol and adult lifestyles.
Mhm. Yeah, I tell you, there's a club in London called the Slime Light.
Mm-hmm.
Not the Limelight, the Slime Light,
Yeah.
and it's been there like 20 years. It's this old factory, and it's just amazing. They play like electro, they play punk, they play goth, and you get people coming in from Sweden, from Italy, from just it's really an eclectic crowd.
Mm-hmm.
You've got cyberpunk, you've got just all
I love it. Yeah,
amazing.
there's a lot of different things going on now.
Yeah, and it's really changed since the early LA days when it was pretty like at one level.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like anything, it evolved, and I think punk rock's everywhere. You got gosh, you got 50-year-old women and they're walking around with burgundy hair and
Well, get this.
you know.
Get this. We have a venue here in a town called Carcassonne,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a medieval city on top of a hill, and it's totally preserved from the medieval days. They filmed Robin Hood there, and Motorhead played there, and next month it's going to be the Sex Pistols.
Oh,
They're going to be there,
yeah.
except with the new singer Frank. What's his name?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if it's worth seeing them.
I don't know. I've really never listened to them. It's funny. A friend of mine shocked the living daylights out of me. He's a biker, and he used to roll with a club out here called the Vagos, and then he kind of got out of that club, and he would roll with other bikers, to go to the rock store, which is up here in Mulholland Highway and stuff. And one day I see a video, and he's there riding bikes with Steve Jones, and Steve Jones is coming around the corner on a race bike wearing nothing but a pair of skinny little teeny itty bitty underwear, just completely naked, coming around the corner. And I'm like, this is fucking wrong. I tell him, I go, dude, this is fucking. What do you mean you're hanging out with Steve Jones? Like, this is wrong. You're not supposed to hang out with Steve Jones and go motorcycle riding. This is.
Yeah. Hey, get this. We lived in a off of Las Palmas. It's called off of Sunset Boulevard, and Steve Jones. He had a Harley, and he would come in at 3 a.m. to drop his stripper girlfriend off in the front there. Woke us up at least 3-4 nights a week, and later we found out it was him. It was him doing it.
Oh yeah.
And I said, well, then all is forgiven,
Yeah, he was doing a lot of like.
The Bullocks is cool.
He was doing a lot of metal projects and stuff like during that, as punk died kind of thing. So probably from 85, 86, somewhere around there, and. There was some solo album that he did that somebody showed me at some point, I think I listened to, but nothing to real wow, But yeah, he was running around like a rock star,
He, to me, never mind the Bullocks, the chord changes that he came up with, and using only 6 or 7 chords, that's made punk rock. It's just clever music. It's the opposite of prog rock before, which had like 10,000 different elements. It's just like stripped down and basic, and that's why I fell in love with punk.
That's the Sex Pistols really are what got me into punk.
Same here.
Just got lucky with a friend, and he turned me onto their album, and I remember taking the album home with me that day and recording it. It was like, wow, this is fucking amazing. I just never had heard anybody ever sing like Johnny Rotten. With all the cursing and shit.
No.
Like you couldn't do that here in America. Like there was, we had like stupid Hall & Oates, and they would sing "It's a Bitch Girl." Like, remember that? Like it'd be "It's a Bitch Girl." It'd be like "It's a Bleep Girl" throughout the thing until eventually they said, "Oh, I guess we can let the word bitch go by. It's just a female dog."
Yeah.
But that's how puritanical they were, and So I remember hearing Johnny Rotten and going like, "Holy fuck! What the fuck is this? And what the fuck is he saying? I gotta fucking listen to every fucking thing now."
Yeah. Well, it's America has still got a Puritan streak in it. You know.
Yeah. I'm still believing in the make believe and the some magical
Well.
man in the heavens somewhere. I don't know.
Well, anyway, the Sex Pistols really did it for me, and then they branched out, and I'm a Discharge. I remember going on the vinyl fetish when Henry and Joseph owned it, and they had all the great British imports.
They were the best. Everything. Yeah, I interviewed a friend of mine, Stephen Shayer. He worked there with those guys, and it's just an interesting thing because he's like, man, everybody came in. Roz came in, and all the Misfits, because they would do those signings and stuff. He said it was amazing.
Yeah.
Just being around there, and he said that you'd sit there all day with them. It's like, wow,
Yeah, and last time I was in LA, I went down to Melrose, and I noticed the whole place had just died out. There's nothing, and it's greed.
It is. It's very high rent. Melrose was possible because it was so cheap, but it's outrageous. You can't afford to put a store in Melrose.
See, you couldn't give it away for a while, and then all of a sudden people with new ideas came in and made it happen, and then the landlords got greedy. Yeah. The people moved out because they couldn't afford the rent, so the chains moved in and destroyed everything.
As soon as they came out with, there was a TV show called Melrose Place, and it was like a nighttime soap opera, kind of garbage show, but that's what exploded Melrose. Where's Melrose? All of a sudden, we got to go to Melrose. So you'd go down there, and it was a full, it was like Beverly Hills all of a sudden. You're like, holy shit,
Yeah, it was packed full of looky-loos and some cool people too.
People from all around the world. You'd go there, and you'd like, wow, all the different languages are spoken here today. It's like going to the Santa Monica Pier. If you go to the Santa Monica Pier, well, you can hear the world speak because there's so many people going there. Venice Beach is the same thing. You go there's people from everywhere going there. They hear about it. They've seen it in a movie, and then they come here.
If you go to Berlin, right? Mm-hmm. You go on the subway, the tube, and you'll hear people speaking English with accents because it would be like somebody from Slovakia speaking to a guy from Sweden, speaking to a Polish guy, and they're all. But English is a connecting language, so they all speak English. Oh. It's a trip.
Wow.
Huh. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well.
What do you want to tell people about your club? Anything that you want them to know about specifically Godzilla's as far as?
Next time, if you ever want to do a club which would get 800 or more people, you better have an army of friends with you to help you run it. Otherwise, you will be exploited, cheated, stressed out, because when you have something and it's working, and then you have all kinds of people just waiting to pounce on it and say it's mine, or they steal the money, etc. Yeah. That's my advice.
So when you do, like if you did a nightclub or something, this is like a team effort. You're probably better off with several partners involved, but then again, it also depends probably on the music scene and what the club is, right? Like what its identity is too. I mean, you started a club in one of the hardest freaking times, and really it was the Old West. I mean, you literally were in the Old West, my man.
It was crazy, but I didn't expect that level of craziness. So I mean, because of the marketability of punk rock in Southern California at that time, I would suggest if you do anything like that on that scale, then you better be ready for it and have some people that work. Number one, get somebody to work the front door that takes the money that you know and trust.
Yeah. Because they're the ones that they're going to bleed you dry.
And the people watching the doors, like a Godzilla, make sure they're not friends with assholes because they let them in free. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They went to a band called Aggression from Oxnard.
Yeah.
I had them watch the doors, and of course they let in people I didn't want in there. Like they let in that asshole Stern brother, and for the damned, and I saw him in time. I said, "Get the fuck out!" So I had to throw him out myself because the bouncers weren't doing their job. So
Wow.
it really
So
does
it
come
literally
down to
got to be a
you better
real.
know some people.
You mean literally got to be a war between you and those guys from BYO and their little setup, huh? I mean,
Yeah, but the
they
thing
were already
is,
starting out looking to skim money and rip people off and this and that.
yeah. Well, okay. Well, how come they never did a club?
You know,
They talk big. And they put on a show. They took the exploiter from me, and they were so inept that there was a massive riot.
that was
And it
yes,
was
you're right. I was at that riot. That was yes, the exploited riot. It was nuts.
and and then they did another show at the Palladium, and that turned into a riot because
Hmm.
they were like teenagers. Oh, well, let's they weren't like adults about it. They didn't have the managerial skills to even get anything off the ground like what I did.
Yeah.
And yet
You
they had some stooge writing a story about the Godzillas and LA Weekly saying it's their club. I
you
mean,
know
really?
about their whole little thing with punk rock bowling, right?
No, I left way,
Okay. So
after
in
that.
Las Vegas here, I want to say the first one I attended was probably back in like maybe 2006. They started this
Uh-huh,
thing called Punk Rock Bowling, and that's a BYO production. So it's all the
uh-huh,
Stern brothers, and they would get a hotel, and then they would book a series of gigs to be a part of it. And some of them I think eventually worked into like an all-inclusive package, and it became very expensive, but it was
uh-huh,
one of those great times when it was first starting out that I remember going to Vegas and you'd walk through a casino and you knew fucking everyone, man. All the punkers were walking around. I'm obviously they're 20, 30, 40 years older than we knew them before, but it was just sort of one of those like, this is like a reunion thing. And like
uh-huh,
anything, as the years progressed, it got bigger and uglier and stupider and
uh-huh.
more money. And from now on, I think they've canceled it at this point. But they did that one, and then there was also like they would do there was not them themselves, but once that started, they had like a rockabilly thing that would come into town in Vegas, and so it kind of Vegas started letting punk rock in, so to speak, and
Uh-huh.
it was a lot of
Well,
money, I guess. They made a lot of money off of it.
you do know that these brothers had a huge advantage over a lot of people because their father was very wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and they didn't even pay their own fucking rent. They had a nice apartment just off of Melrose. Because I went there to that apartment with Antipasti,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why they were so irresponsible too. Because they could kind of do what they want,
They had a lot
because
of
daddy
yeah. They had
takes
the
care of
freedom
everything and
because
they
they
pay the
didn't.
rent.
Yeah,
The rest of us struggled.
they had the freedom to do whatever they wanted. They didn't have to have a job.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was always that way in the LA music scene. There's always the writers and the photographers and this and that. They're always the sons and daughters of rich people because they have the luxury of doing this. Because if they fail, they're not going to starve. They just go get money from dad or mom.
So I've tried to tell people because my family was originally from New York, and then we came here to
Uh-huh,
California. I was a young kid, so I've grown up mostly here in California. But
uh-huh,
I have met countless people who have come to this town to try to make it big in either music
yeah,
or television or the movies. And they
uh-huh,
come here with these big dreams and they crash right out. And I say to them, that's not how it's done. If you want to get into
uh-huh,
movies or television, you grew up probably in Tarzana or Sherman Oaks, and up the street
uh-huh,
from you, who you used to go with your family to go visit for, Christmas time and different holidays. That
yeah,
person's a director, that person's a producer, that person's a studio head, that person's in the business, and that's the person who, when you finally get to the age you say, gee, I think I want to aspire to be an actress or an actor, that guy is
uh-huh,
going to be, okay, sure, and pipe you right in, and you'll have very little audition, and you won't have to live in a shitty apartment, and you won't have to be a waitress or a bartender. None of that shit's going to
uh-huh,
occur. And if you lose, if it doesn't work out, like you mentioned, they can go right back and live with mom and dad, or mom and dad will keep them propped up in an
uh-huh.
apartment somewhere, And
Yeah, exactly.
that's how it's done. And all these motherfucking dumb fucks that come out here think they're going to be famous, but all you have to do is look at who's famous now. Every single one of them
Mm-hmm.
is the son, daughter, cousin,
Mm-hmm.
so and so of someone else who was already made it here. So to
Yeah.
come in here and try to break in is it's a low
Good luck.
possibility. It's a real low
Good
possibility.
luck. Yeah. That's what I say.
And
Yeah.
I remember working at like a phone company, and these cats would come in. It was in Hollywood, and these cats would come in, man, and they're young, and they're like, and I'd say, so why? How come you came here? And they wouldn't want to admit it, and then they would go, I wanted to be in the business, and I wanted to be this and that. And I'd say to them
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I just told you, but you didn't grow up in Sherman Oaks, dummy.
Yeah.
And if you had, you would
Yeah.
have lived up the street from Frank Zappa, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where they lived, you know?
Exactly.
I remember
Exactly.
going. Here's a funny Zappa song, or funny Zappa story. A friend and I used to go to the Galleria. You probably remember the song from Frank
Oh
Zappa,
yeah.
right? Valley Girl.
His daughter. Yeah.
And we would go there, and there was this arcade there upstairs. And I remember that my friend loved to play a game called Tempest. You know, that was always the thing in those days, video games, arcades. And we go
Right.
in there, and you could get a high score. And when you got the high score, you could put your initials or your name. And there was this motherfucker who used to always, like, my friend would go in there and he'd be like, motherfucking Ahmet, that motherfucker. He's like, that motherfucking Ahmet, he's at the top. I'm going to fucking knock him out again. And he would go in and he would play this game and then bump Ahmet down below. That was Ahmet Zappa.
Oh.
Yeah, it turned out it was Ahmet Zappa. He'd go there with a bag of fucking quarters all fucking day and just play the game and then hit high score. And my friend Dave would go there and go, fuck this motherfucking Ahmet guy. I'm gonna fucking kick his ass again. And he would, before we'd leave, that afternoon, he'd put his name back on the top of the high scores. And I was
Right.
like, wow. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're
Memories.
living in here. Anyways, it's really good talking with you. I would absolutely probably love to have you come back and maybe talk again. There's always, when you start talking about these things, all of a sudden you start to remember things that you just haven't thought about in
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
years, I really appreciate you calling in today because I just know it's, gosh, life in France, I wouldn't want to do anything other than that. I've been to
Yeah. It's
France.
nice.
I've been to Saint-Cermar, and I've been to Marseille, and a few other little places along there. We would bounce
This will
into.
be the fourth country that I've lived in now. The U.S., UK,
Hmm.
Germany, and now France. And then there are tons of British people down here, and people from Northern Europe because it's really very inexpensive, and
You
life
know,
is good, and wine is very inexpensive. It's very affordable.
you
You
know,
got lots of Brits here.
I'm getting ready for the retirement stage, and I was thinking of, I'm going to retire. Obviously, that's going to happen, but and I was actually considered other countries, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe doing some traveling and maybe residing somewhere else. Any advice? I mean, obviously, planning is everything, but
Mm-hmm.
but aside from that, any advice?
Um, enjoy life while you can, and just
I
make
guess
sure you stay healthy.
I guess if you want to do it, just do it, right? Don't even think about it. I guess is
Yeah.
probably the way to go.
If you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for calling in. I will
Yeah.
hopefully talk to you soon. I'm sure I'll see you online, and we'll get involved in our political
Yeah. If
debates
you
and whatnot.
keep in touch, and either through Facebook or Messenger,
Yeah.
and let me know how I can get into your material.
Oh yeah,
Especially
that's
the
not a
second
problem. I'm going to send
recording.
you. You're going to get a whole package of links. I'll send you as soon as I'm done here, and I've
Okay, cool.
boiled everything down, and you'll know exactly what's going on with the interview today.
Hey, that's
So
great.
yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant.
Again, thanks so much for being on the show. Just hold on. I'm going to shut down the show, and then we'll talk for a few minutes before you go. But
Okay.
all right, folks, that's it. I guess as much as we can get to here with Mr. Frank Reed, the owner and creator of Godzilla's Nightclub. Hopefully that clears up some stuff because I know a lot of people didn't know who you even were. So have a good day, folks.